Aaron, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Justin, man, thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I jokingly said to you, I was like, you've probably done 300 podcasts at this point, and you told me what you believe is the factual number of being a guest on over 4,000 shows. I was not even going to start here, but I just found out. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Why did you go down that road? I've never, and I've met so many people in the podcast space. I've never met somebody who's done that many shows. Like, what was the
Yeah,
idea behind that?
I appreciate that. I actually didn't even want to do it. About 10 years ago, the mastermind group I was in, Dan Miller was in the group, the guy that owns 48 Days to the Work You Love. And Dan told me when I started coaching, he goes, "Hey, Big A, you should really be a guest on podcast." And I was like, "I don't know anything about that space at all." He said, "I do. I'll teach you a little bit about it, and then you can go from there." So I reached out to John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire. He was just getting started in his show, and he gave me an opportunity to be a guest. And so subsequently, I've been a guest numbers of times on his show. But I fell in love with it that day because we just had a candid conversation. We just went back and discovered who each other was and talked about what little success we might have had. And it turned into something that I really enjoy because I'm conversationalist. I have relationships matter most is my number one core value. So I'm like, well, I'll just enjoy talking to people. And so when it's really scripted, it's got to go this way and it's got to go that way. It's like, I don't enjoy that. But when Justin, you and I can get on here and we can hang out, we can share some information that maybe is going to be beneficial to your audience. That really interests me. Not talking about myself, but talking about the principles and the concepts that I've lived through. I'll be 64 my next birthday and got 44 years of marriage and a bunch of grandkids. And I feel like maybe I have a few nuggets to offer and then hopefully allow people to dodge some of the landmines I've had to go through. So yeah, that's my heart, man, helping other people be successful.
I love it. I love it, man. I was also a guest only one time on John Lee Dumas's podcast, probably back in 2018, long
Sure.
before I was ready for it. I wasn't prepared.
It
I
was
feel
my
like I did
first
a great
show.
job.
I'd never been on a show until I did his. I was a nervous wreck, man. I had notes everywhere and I was like, oh my gosh. And so he goes, "Big A, just relax. Let's have fun." So, and we did. So
Uh,
it's
I
been
love
fun.
it.
3,000 shows I've been on, and I've been the host on about 1,000 expert interviews and podcast interviews. And so, yeah, I'm not even good at it. I just like it. So it's just fun. We'll have a good time today.
Dude, I love it. So why don't we give some context to my audience? Who is Aaron Walker today? And then
Yeah.
during the conversation, we'll break down how you got there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Aaron Walker today is first and foremost, I'm a Christ follower. I've been a Christian since I was 9 years old. Second, I'm Robin Walker's husband, 44 years tomorrow, actually. June
Wow.
21st
Happy
is
anniversary.
our anniversary. And so I'm excited about that. I'm a father of two beautiful girls, Brooke and Holly, and I have 5 grandchildren. What I do professionally is I'm the founder of View from the Top. I help ordinary men become extraordinary in every area of their life. We've got 15 mastermind groups. We do live events and we do one-on-one coaching. That's who Aaron Walker is today.
I love it. So I've been saying your name wrong. It's Aaron.
That's Big A.
Big A. I
See,
love
you
it.
can't mess that up. Nobody can pronounce it correctly because it's Aaron, but everybody says Aaron. And so a buddy of mine started calling me Big A when I was 13 years old, and it stuck. So if we're friends or you pay me money, you call me Big A. So there you go. You can't mess that up, Justin.
I love it. And so it's so funny. And I want to give like people know my journey a little bit, and they know that because of the success of this show, I get pitched probably 40 to 50 times a day now for people
Sure.
to be on the show. You've
Yeah.
never pitched me. And the reason that you're on this show is because I love the value that you add on social media.
Mm.
There's a lot of noise on social media. There's a lot
Mm.
of people just shouting, trying to sell things, all the stuff in between. And you just show up positively every single day. Is that who
Mm.
you are? Is that who you've always been? Or is that something you learned later in life to realize that you have to
Mm.
enjoy every moment, even the small ones?
Well, the irony of the timing today, I wrote some newsletters to our organization, and one of it was on being optimistic or pessimistic. And we did a podcast interview in my show, View from the Top, and we talked about it with my co host. I'm an eternal optimist, and like I have been my whole career. My mom was really instrumental in that. There was a little saying when I was a kid, she would say, "Can't, couldn't do it, but could, did it all." And I hated that when I was a kid. I was like, man, there's just some things I can't do. And she said, as long as you say you can't, you won't be able to. And she said, but could did it all. And I've adopted that, Justin, as my life mantra. It's like, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I'm going to give it a shot. And so I'm always looking for the positive outcome. Things sometimes don't work out exactly as I've had it planned, but at the end of the day, I'd rather be optimistic about it and try, give it the benefit of the doubt, as to be pessimistic and say I can't do it. And so many things in my life I didn't know how to do initially, but with that positive mindset, it's really allowed me to try some things that I was scared. Like I had to lean into it, and had to get trusted advisors to help me, but at the end of the day, I never would have attempted it had I not been, somewhat encouraged, primarily by my mom when I was a kid. And so, yeah, I choose to live this way. And see, here's the thing: the only thing we're in complete control over is our attitude. Nothing else we can control. But I've elected to be an optimist my entire life.
Yeah, I love that. Now you talk about, obviously being an optimist and giving it a try, right? And then sometimes it doesn't work out. I think a
No,
lot of
sure.
times people don't give it a try because they're afraid of failure or afraid of it not looking how they pictured it to be. So obviously, as an optimist, how do you stay positive or stay grateful when you have these big visions, these big goals, and then it doesn't happen? Because I think this is something
Yeah.
that every entrepreneur should be able to embrace, but they don't.
Well, it's a real simple mindset shift. And you see, I fear missing an opportunity more than I fear failure. And so if you always take that approach, you're going to try some things that are not going to work out exactly like you had hoped. You're like, hey, this didn't work out. Give you a couple of examples. When I was young, I started my first business when I was 19 years old. And about 10 years later, we sold it to a Fortune 500. And that allowed me to try some pretty cool things that I otherwise wouldn't have gotten to try. So we did another business. And about halfway through that process, there was the property next door that I needed to buy. And the owner wouldn't sell it. It was the Caldwell family here in Nashville, H.G. Hill family. They own more property in Davidson County than anybody. And I said, I really need this building. Like I've discovered that the building that I'm building next door to it, I'm not going to have adequate parking. Like I'm going to be really in bad shape if I don't get this. And he said, there's no way. They turned me down 3 times. They said, we've never sold property. We only buy property. And so I'm like, man, we got to figure out a way. And I called him up. I said, Mr. Caldwell, would you come back down and talk to me one final time? He goes, are we going to talk about that property? I said, yes, sir, we are. He said, I'm not going to sell that property. And I said, I hear you, but why don't you come down? Let's talk about it. He came down, got out of the car and walked up, and he just finally said, I am not selling the property. And I said, listen, everything's figure outable. I don't know what it is today. He said, we've owned this property like 50 years. And he said, I'm not selling the property. And I was extremely disappointed at that time. I was like, man, I thought we were going to be able to figure this out. And he turned around, walked to get in his car. And he did turn around, though, and he said, Mr. Walker. And I said, yes. He said, we do 1031 exchanges. Would you be interested in that? I said, yes, sir. 100% I would. Jason, I didn't even know. I mean, Justin, excuse me. I didn't even know what a 1031 exchange was, but I was like, yes, sir. I'm all in. Like, and he goes, there's a building on Dickerson Road. He said, we've been wanting, if you'll buy that building, we'll do a swap. And so I went and bought the building. We did the exchange, the 1031 exchange, and I got the building. Well, listen, if I'd been pessimistic about that, or even a realist, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to pursue getting that. So it's the diligence, it's the perseverance, it's the can't, couldn't do it, but the could did it all mindset that allowed me to get that. And that business ended up being extremely profitable. So all I want to say is don't give up at the first headwind. Maybe don't give up at the third headwind, right? Just keep pushing. But the other thing, the attitude and the disposition that I've been able to develop over my career, this is my 45th year being an entrepreneur. I've learned that, okay, like we can't go through that door, but what does this make possible? What is the avenue that we can go if this doesn't work and possibly even be a better approach? I think as long as we keep that mindset around everything that we do, it can be worked out. You can figure it out. You can accomplish what you're trying to do. It just may not look like you wanted it to originally or on the onset.
Yeah. Now I know you obviously, help men really step into obviously building a business to the next level, but also becoming better men, right? Like such a deeper conversation. How did you find yourself now in the position of leading these masterminds and the
Yeah.
executive one-on-one coaching and all these things? Like that
Yes.
doesn't
Yeah.
happen overnight, right? Obviously you just shared some business success that you've had, but why this stage of your life to go, okay, I want to now
Yeah.
lead and help the next generation,
Yeah.
really become the people they're supposed to be?
I'll have to go back and give you a little context related to this. So when I was young, this was back in the early '90s. I went to Luby's cafeteria to hear a speaker that was talking about starting a radio show here in Nashville, and I went and met this guy, and he offered me a free week advertising to try him, and I did. Took advantage of that. Really fell in love with what he's doing. And that was my first encounter with Dave Ramsey when he was starting his radio show here in Nashville.
I've heard of him.
Consequently, we built quite a relationship, and I went on to sponsor his show for 21 years. And
Wow.
out of that, we became very good friends. And Dave was starting a mastermind in his office. And he said, this is decades ago now. He said, "Hey, Big A, I would like for you to participate in this mastermind." Well, at that time, I didn't even know the concept. This is 25 years ago. I didn't even know the concept of masterminding. Reluctantly, I went and fell in love with it. So we spent the next 10 or 12 years meeting every Wednesday morning in Dave's office for about an hour and a half with 10 other guys, and it radically changed my life. So fast forward from that. Well, before we fast forward, the timing was really providential. And the reason is because almost simultaneously, I had an automobile accident. I ran over and killed a pedestrian on my way to the office. And I was in a bad spot, Justin, just to be honest with you. Mentally and emotionally, I was in a bad spot.
I bet.
So this really came at the optimum time for me to work through that. I sold my business. I took the next 5 years off. I didn't do anything. We built a house. We traveled. I kind of got my legs back under me after the accident. And this organization, Dave, and this group helped me work through the mental side and the emotional side of running over and killing a pedestrian. Well, all the while, it helped me develop and it helped me grow as a man. See, I lived in isolation the first 20 years of my career because I didn't want anybody to know I've got cash flow issues. My kids didn't behave like I wanted. Robin and I didn't have the best of relationship, and I didn't want people to know that.
Yeah.
And so I put a facade up. I didn't let anybody in. Well, once I went into this group, I realized that in order to be in here, I needed to be vulnerable. And that was a scary place for me to be because I was a little bit cocky. You really wouldn't have had me on your show back then because I had done pretty well by the time I was 27 years old. And I thought I had it all figured out. And the truth is, I didn't. Going into this group, it forced me to be vulnerable and transparent. And when I did, I found out that I was really building on something that was kind of shaky ground. It wasn't really solid. And so I came home one day with a pocket full of money to a house full of strangers. My wife walked up
Mhm.
to me and she said, "Thank you for our home, our vacation home, all of our stuff. It's beautiful." And I'm very appreciative. But I really need you at home. The girls need you at home. All you do is work. And it was a wake up call to me. So I spent the next 10 years in this mastermind, getting myself very organized, methodically, and very regimented schedule, growing other businesses. And then 13 years ago, I retired. And Dan Miller asked me what I was going to do now. And Dave asked me, and I said, "I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to retire. I've been working since I was 13, and now I'm 50, and I'm going to retire." And Dan Miller said, "You really should consider coaching other men." Dave invited me to EntreLeadership as his guest, and I did that, fell in love with the process, started coaching a couple of guys. John Lee Dumas had me on the show. And the next day, I had 15 people sign up for one on one coaching. And I went to Robin and I said, "I don't even want to coach 15 people. Like, I just want to coach a couple of guys." And I said, "But you know what I think I'll do is I'll start a mastermind with these 10 or 12 guys." And so I did. And then Pat Flynn had me on Smart Passive Income, and I had enough people to fill up two groups on a 30-minute interview. And I went to Robin and I said, listen, I'm going to start 2 more mastermind groups. And she said, oh, I see where this is going. And I started laughing and she goes, I thought you were retired. I said, yeah, Robin, but I feel a real calling to help these men grow personally, professionally, spiritually, every area of their life. And so, yeah, I kept doing interviews. We kept filling up groups, and here we are now, 15 groups later. I've got amazing guys that have come around me. We've created a succession plan with other partners that have come on board now, and they've got scaling abilities. And we've really put the resources and the efforts into this because we so believe in what we're doing, because people don't have trusted advisors that are unbiased that can help them make decisions in the 5 key areas of their life. And so Robin said the other day, she said, you're working harder now than you did when you were, in our other businesses. And I said, the truth is I love this better than all of the businesses combined, because it's giving them a measure of success and significance, and it's transforming lives. And so, yeah, that's a little bit of the backstory. It's a long answer to your question, but that's how I got into doing what we're doing today.
No, it's great. And obviously, look here, masterminds are the greatest thing I've ever been a part of. Masterminds, my mastermind is the greatest thing I've ever built.
Sure.
The idea that we're able to hold space for people who need it, right? The understanding that it's so much more than just business. Obviously your family, like how's your house? Like how's your house standing, right? I think we overlook that a lot of times. I often tell a story of my own of how I chased success in order to find happiness. And so quote unquote success, right? Like money, house,
Sure.
cars, girls, whatever the answer was, I chased it
Yeah.
all and I got it. And I realized this is not the answer.
Yeah.
But then surrounding yourself with the right people opens your eyes to that. And obviously that's something you discovered in Dave Ramsey's mastermind. And we're able to now share that with so many other people. And by the way, shout out to Dan Miller as well. He made a lasting impact while he was here. And I only met him once in person. It was at
Yeah.
Podfest one year.
Sure.
And I'll tell you this, the first time I met him, he made me feel like he knew me forever.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure. That was a quality he had. Dan and I were very close for almost 30 years. I miss him immensely. The last conversation I had with him, I was standing here and was talking to him on the phone. And when I hung up, I knew it was the last time I was going to get an opportunity to talk to him. And Dan was a great guy. You said something I want to go back to. I don't want it to get overlooked because it's monumental. You said I was chasing happiness with all of these tangible assets. I was looking at success financially, and never should we minimize the value of success financially. I can't stand it when people say money doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. It's very, very vital, and it's very important. It helps us make, decisions that we otherwise couldn't make, and it pays the mortgage, and we're able to give money away. So it's vital. But the key is that I want to own money. I don't want it to own me.
mm,
And you said it didn't make me happy. And that's because happiness is a choice, not a trait. We choose happiness, right? And so we can learn to be content in every scenario, but never complacent. And I think people confuse those. I'm not a complacent person. It's always redlining, hammer down, let's go. I feel God has given me some talents of encouragement, to challenge, to help, to inspire, to motivate. And I want to use those to its fullest. But I'm very content in my relationship with my wife and my children and my business, because that also is a choice. And so I think we've got to formulate our words properly to let us know that the money is not going to make us happy, but the things that we do with it can make us happy, because
mm.
happiness is a state of being, right? And so we just need to be really careful how we formulate that. And most of the time, it's when you get these tangible assets, it's fun for a minute, but it's hollow. It doesn't give you that purpose and that meaning that other things do. And that's the reason being significant in the lives of others gives you that satisfaction that fills you up. It's like I was a part of that. So it's being the giver and not the taker. And that's what mastermind groups have allowed me to understand, is that, yeah, I can go fast, I can hide and behind the veil, and I cannot be vulnerable and transparent. But when I am, it endears me with other people, and they can help me on the journey and make it real and make it sustainable. And so that's the reason that I'll always be in a group until I die, so that it can help me finish strong and be the man that I was commissioned to be.
I love it. Now, you mentioned earlier that you're now, as of tomorrow of this conversation, you'll be married for 44 years.
Right.
That's powerful. I shared with you before I hit record that I just passed a year, a couple months ago, and I want to make it 44. Now, we got married a little bit older than you guys, so we'll be in our 80s when we
That's
hit the
okay.
44 mark.
Right.
But with that being said, you also mentioned that your marriage was rocky. You weren't
Yeah.
standing on solid ground at one point. What are
True.
some secrets or tips for people in a marriage that, hey, it might not be solid right now, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's the end? What
Yeah.
what did you go through in order to fix that?
Well, okay, Justin. So I'm not a marriage counselor. I'll give it the best shot I can. Okay. So I mentioned early in the interview that I'm Christian by faith. And so we base our marriage on the principles of God's word. So I'll start there. So, pragmatically, though, some of the things that we do and have done that I've had to learn, I was very selfish early on. Like, I came from a very poor background. We didn't have anything. I won't go down that path, but I know what being poor is about. My wife, now Robin, was poorer than I was. And so, 7 kids in the house. We both lived in about a 600 square foot house,
Mm.
and we later lost our house in bankruptcy as a child. And so, it was a house that my dad gave $4,500 for when I was a kid. 4,500 or 6,500, I don't remember, but nonetheless, it was a cheap house. And so I thought, I want better. And so I was very motivated. I didn't know what I wanted exactly, but I knew what I didn't want. And so it was very motivating to me. And I wasn't going to let anything get in my way. Like, I was going to forge forward. I was going to make something of myself. I was going to be an accomplished businessman, whatever that took. And I didn't even know what that looked like at the time. That spilled over into my marriage. And so when I came home, I was the guy with the iron fist. I was ruling things. This is what we're doing. And Robin subjected herself to that for a period of time. And then I worked, and it was just one more store. I'm going to buy, this is the 14th business that we've owned in 45 years. And so she's been down this path a few times. It was just another $100,000, another, whatever, you fill in the blank, whatever it is. Well, that caught up to me, because what you do is you keep moving the bar. You're like, hey, I'll feel successful when. And then you're just like, well, that didn't really feel like I thought it was going to. So now I'll be successful when. And finally, it just dawned on me. It's like, this is never going to fill me up, like, ever. And it was about the time Robin came to me and said, listen, I didn't sign up for this, right? I'm not a single mom, but I'm raising our girls, and you're always working, and you're not present when you're present. And so I had to totally revamp the way I do home and some of the encouragements that I can give you. And I'm going to be straight up honest with you. Some of these I still struggle with. It's not something that I've mastered. It's something that I have to continually be in accountability for. And some of the challenges are that I wanted what I wanted when I wanted it. Now, that came to tangible possessions, that came to physical intimacy, that came to, emotions. Every part of my life, it was like, well, I'm going to do this to get, or I'm going to do. And one day, Robin challenged me on that. She said, I know that some of these things you're doing for the recognition rather than me needing the help. Why don't you focus on me and serving me and doing the things that I need, and maybe the reciprocity you'll be surprised at which I was. The other thing was communication. Like, I would just say it and leave rather than sitting down, allowing her to be heard as well. And so communication is vital. Now, it's taken a long time to get to that. The other thing is just being totally open and honest, not fighting. I don't like to fight. I don't. When Robin and I fight, it's like you and I talking right now. It's like, hey, have you considered this? Or you said this. Is that really what you meant? It's like seeking really to hear and understand rather than to be heard. And so I think if you do those things and you do it well, I will give one advice that's helped me more than anything. We don't have those kind of discussions in the heat of the battle.
Mm.
I'll come back the next day and I'll say, hey, I've thought through what you said and I want to get clarity. and then we can have a conversation. Because when you're fighting, you want to win. And when you sit down and you logically talk through it, then you're calm. You can say, yeah, I said that, but that's not really what I meant. So I think if you do those couple of things, and the other thing is if you got children, always be united, right? We would go in the bedroom and disagree about things, but in front of the kids, we were united. And that really plays a big role in the way the children perceive the marriage. And so they need to see a husband and a wife united. And so that's really helped us build a strong marriage as well.
It's cool. I appreciate you being vulnerable in that answer. You're saying, "Hey, I'm still. These are still things that I have to work on and move forward." And I think a lot of times people aren't that way, and that speaks to your growth over the last 40 years, right? And to talk about
Yeah.
how you can now share that openly. I think I love that. So I want to ask you a question that I ask every person on this show. It's a two-part question. The first part is, what is your definition of success? And the second part is, what are three things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Yeah. Success has been redefined a number of times during the course of my career. When I was young, I was very aspirational. Obviously, finances was something that we needed, and I should have been aspirational towards resources financially. And so, over the course of my life, though, now defining success for me now would be I want to have a measure of free time. Time is as, if not more important to me than resources today, right? Because there's a few things I enjoy doing. 50 years this year, I've been working 50 years. And so now time is really important. The other thing is impact. The impact that we're having in Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind today is the definition of success. And then finally is legacy. And when I say legacy, not a memorial to Aaron Walker or Big A, it's not that. It's that I want to leave something that can sustain itself without my involvement. So therefore, I've brought on partners. We've built systems, processes. We've built a framework that allows what we're doing to continue in my absence. The law of averages, I won't be here too terribly much longer. And I want something that's going to leave an impact, that's going to transform lives in the future. So that's the legacy that I'm pursuing today. That's how I would define success.
I love it. And what are three things you do every day to ensure that success for yourself?
Yeah, back again to my comment about being a Christ follower. I spend time in meditation every morning. I spend time in prayer. I spend time in scripture reading. Oftentimes I'll listen to praise and worship music. Uh, I get in my hot tub just about every morning for about a half hour minimum. It's a really good place for me to relax and focus on the day. And then my day doesn't start usually until a little bit later because I enjoy going to the lake. So I'm on the lake 3 or 4 days a week, early in the morning, get back, take a shower, get to work 9 or 10 o'clock historically. The other thing is minimizing the things I focus on. A lot of people are an inch deep and a mile wide. They want to do so many things. So my desire is to be an inch wide and a mile deep. And I want to prioritize the things that matter. And I want to be really out of balance in all the areas that matter. And so what I mean by that is push away the shiny objects and really focus on the things that move the needle that make a difference. And so when we do that, we can make a huge impact.
I love it. So you just talked about legacy. So I want to ask you a question that's hypothetical, but it always draws an interesting answer. So let's take you to the end of your life. You're on your deathbed. You're about to take your last breath, and you're surrounded by your family. The key here is everything you've created has disappeared. The business does not exist. The 4,000 plus interviews that you've done are not out there, and you can only be remembered for one sentence. What would you want that sentence to be?
Yeah, I would say invest in meaningful relationships sooner because for me, everything is about relationships. And the people that are isolated, that is the enemy to excellence. And if you want to really excel in life, you have to have a flourishing community. So I would simply say invest in meaningful relationships with unbiased, trusted advisors that can help catapult your life to the next level.
I love it. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question. But before we get there, how do people get a hold of you? How can they work with you? What's all the good stuff?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that opportunity. Viewfromthetop.com is the easiest way. I would love to talk to you if there's something that we can help you with. We would entertain just getting on a call to see if we could help you. So, yeah, reach out. Would love to talk to you.
I love it. And like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. And that question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Yeah, probably my biggest moment of growth. I was 25 years old, and the enterprise we went into was a select group of people, and they told me that I was going to run that business without a question, and they ostracized me. They wouldn't have anything to do with me, and I kept telling them, I'm here to be an advocate, I'm here to serve, I'm here to do well, I want to do just like you. And the whole organization wouldn't have anything to do with me. And my level of persistence in proving to them and befriending them, when I was 25 years old, they made me president of their association. And so it was one of my greatest accomplishments probably in my career. And it was due to the mantra I stated earlier. And it was the persistence and the determination, and not giving up. And so that was probably my greatest learning opportunity, is when the headwinds come, and they will, we can prevail.
I love it. Big A, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey with my audience. I would love to do this more than once and have you back on the show in the future because, like you said, you want to be a mile deep. So I know we can go deeper on so many topics. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Justin.